Welcome to the Stranger Still podcast. I'm Kathleen.
And I'm Miles.
And welcome back to our character-by-character Stranger Things rewatch, where we follow our 11 main characters throughout the series.
Stranger Things, known for a lot of things, but the cast and the characters is the strength.
That is the thing that ties it all to the heart that ties it all together. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at StrangerStill22. Subscribe, share, review us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Our seventh character, the upside down talkin, snowball walkin, curiosity door unlockin. Welcome to the never ending story of Dustin Henderson.
Oh yeah, Dusty. I love his mom. She's just such a minor character that she really adds some comedy to the
kid
show.
was just murdered there.
Yeah, we forgot.
Yeah, Dustin, a fan favorite, one of those characters that everybody loves.
Mm-hmm.
And
who doesn't love Dustin?
Exactly. And he's one of the characters we first gravitate to. So we meet him in season 1. He's the bard of the Dungeons and Dragons party. He's the one telling Will to attack, attack, attack. Mm-hmm. And he's that neutral force throughout there. But truly, right from the beginning, Dustin is, if not the most, one of the most popular Stranger Things characters.
Agreed.
Why is that? Why is Dustin such an audience popularity?
Favorite? Yeah. Favorite. Well, I think out of all of them, he's the most good-natured, positive, and optimistic one of the group. And then you couple that with his extreme intelligence, the fact that he's constantly open-minded about things, that allows the audience, I think, to kind of relax into him, you know? And he's just really comfortable with who he is as a character too. You can tell he enjoys being nerdy, and he really just genuinely he feels like he's a good guy, and he should feel that way because he totally is. Yeah. He knows he's a nerd, but he's not bothered by that. So he has this confidence without being proud, you know?
Well, he's kind of us. He feels like he's the audience. You know, I love in the beginning when he is properly amazed by the fact that 11 can close doors with her mind.
Yeah.
He's hello. She's a real life Yoda, basically. Yeah, and he's pumped about it. And he's also he's our explainer. I mean, he's the one who first tells us about the upside down.
He moves the story along.
Yeah, and he moves the story along, comes with a compass plan and stuff, but he's the one speaking to the audience. You now need to know this thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And he ultimately is kind of, like you said, he's the driver of the story. I love when he's figuring out the compass thing with Mr. Clark in this first season. And it really, there's this one little scene where Mr. Clark is saying, he's describing the flea and the acrobat analogy. He's like, you'd need more power than we ever know. And Dustin's like, yeah, sure, we can,
Cool.
Good to know. More power than we ever know. But he's never daunted. He's always, like you said at the very beginning, he's always open-minded. He's true a scientist approach.
Yes, absolutely. The scientist approach, and he genuinely loves that. Loves the science of it. Loves the interest of it. I just think that's really cool.
And I think the actor too. There's a charisma there. I think he's sort of an ambassador for the show too. He goes on the talk shows. He seems kind of similar to Dustin.
In real life. Yeah. Gaten Mazzarato, that's his name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is awesome. I'm excited to see him in other things too. I've been seeing commercials of other movies that he's appearing in, and I'm really excited to just see how he is outside of Stranger Things as well.
We've always said the true success of Stranger Things is this pack of young actors. Mm-hmm. It's a home run. It's 6 back-to-back home runs.
Absolutely.
It's pretty crazy.
Yep.
So Dustin in season 1, as we said, is sort of he's the one who figures out a lot of things. He's the one who makes the connection between the Veil of Shadows and the Upside Down, and after Elle flips the board over, he determines the compasses and we should follow them to the gate, and the compass goes wrong. And then he's also that neutral party between Mike, who is we should trust 11 and see the good in her, and Lucas, who is much more skeptical about it.
Right.
And when that breaks down into a full-fledged fight in the junkyard when 11 runs away, Lucas and Mike split for good, Dustin is the one talking sense.
Absolutely.
What matters is that he is your best friend. and then this girl shows up and starts living in your basement, and all you ever want to do is pay attention to her.
That's not true.
Yes, it is. And you know it, and he knows it, but no one ever says anything until you both start punching and yelling at each other like goblins with intelligence scores of 0.
See, excellent display of Dustin's intelligence. Like, he's able to identify the real reason that Lucas is upset with Mike. It's jealousy. And the thing is, like, Dustin really presents this info to Mike in such a way that's like, he's not coming off as a jerk. It's very matter of fact. And it's coming from a friend. And like, I think that's what's important in allowing Mike to really, truly listen and understand that, like, yeah, Dustin is right. Yeah. So like, he is always kind of the mediator between them.
And he's beholden to the rule of law, right? The party must stick together. Yeah, Dustin is the mediator and the glue. So they go to Lucas, though they do still have a friction impasse there where they do not agree whether 11 should join the party. Mm-hmm. And so Dustin and Mike split from Lucas. Lucas goes out, and then they go looking for the lab separately, basically. Right. But Dustin and Mike run into the bullies. And they run to the quarry, and one of the bullies is going to cut out Dustin's teeth.
God.
And they are saved by 11 to the amusement and delight of Dustin Henderson, who shouts after them, "Yeah, that's right. You better run. She's our friend and she's crazy.
She'll kill you. She'll kill you." It's so funny.
I love that. And so they make up with 11 there. And then as they come back and Lucas has realized that the lab is truly after them, they come and flip the van and stuff. And then the whole party makes up. And just as Dustin was adamant that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. See, he's like the media. He brings everybody together. Yeah. He's the glue.
He's giving instructions, and he's keeping everybody on track. And then when they're in the junkyard and they get the radio call from Jonathan and from Hopper, they are like deciding whether to answer back or not, whether this is a trap. Right. And Dustin is absolutely fixated that this could be a Lando Calrissian moment. And looking back on it, isn't he right about that too? Isn't this what Hopper does eventually sort of a Lando situation?
You know, okay.
I guess for people who don't know, Lando Calrissian is a Star Wars reference of a character who is a former friend of Han Solo's, who invites him to Sanctuary at Cloud City in Empire Strikes Back. But it turns out that Lando has made a deal with Darth Vader in order to keep his Cloud City people safe.
Right. Yeah. You know, Dustin it is like that situation. He really does call it out correctly, but I can't. I don't know. I feel like that puts blame on Hopper, which is unfair because Hopper in that instance is doing what's right for all of the kids and Joyce and everything. So
not all the kids though, not 11.
Well, not 11, but like she's kind of the outsider. He's trying to protect the people in his, town.
But that's exactly Lando. Yeah. That's exactly what Lando does.
All right. Fair.
My point is Dustin is absolutely right. Lucas and Mike are telling him to shut up about Lando like harshly, and he was totally right.
You're right. And that's the theme throughout this whole series is that Dustin is always right.
As Dustin says in season 4, how many times do I have to be right for you guys to start listening to me? So Dustin, they do all the end of season 1, basically. They convince his main role in doing the bathtub plan and finding Will in the Upside Down with using 11 is to convince Mr. Clark at like 10 p.m. at night to not keep this curiosity door locked and tell them how to build a sensory deprivation tank.
Right.
And then they do that, and they are left at the school where he does another project where he reveals that lunch lady Phyllis has been hoarding the chocolate pudding.
Which she absolutely has. And he was right about that too.
He's right about that too. He knew it. And then he's eventually part of that climax where Dustin, Lucas, and Mike get trapped in the classroom with the Demogorgon. It's about to kill them, and 11 evaporates them both, and everything's happy ever after that. In fact, back to the party, he's telling Will to fireball that son of a bitch, and Get the Thessalhydra. Great first season for Dustin.
Oh, so good.
And we talked about him as a fan favorite. He's also the most quotable character.
He really is. I mean, we quote him all the time in our lives.
Dusty. We also quote his mom, as you said.
Yeah.
Okay, but quotable characters. Season 1 is prime time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's time for a game. What is Dustin's best line of season 1? And I have 5 nominees here. You want to read them off?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so number 1. We never would have upset you if we knew you had superpowers. Yes. Fantastic line.
True.
Number 2, you better run. She's our friend and she's crazy. She'll kill you. You hear me? You sons of bitches. She'll kill you. Obviously, we already quoted that one. We do that a lot in our lives too, I feel like.
Yep.
The next one, all 3 of you were being a bunch of little assholes. I was the only reasonable one.
Oh, I love that. That's when he's telling Mike to apologize, and he's, you're an asshole, Luke is an asshole, 11's an asshole. I was the only reason.
Yeah, exactly. So funny. And then, of course, the one that you just quoted, why are you keeping this curiosity door locked? When he's talking to Mr. Clark about the deprivation tank at 10:30 at night. And then, of course, the last one, which you also just quoted. See, he's so quotable. Mike, I found the chocolate pudding.
And just the like screech in his voice.
Oh, yes,
when he does
absolutely.
That, similar to Mike's screeches when he's calling for his mom. So
Yeah.
Which one's your favorite?
Okay, mine is the curiosity door one. It's just so funny, and I love that it's reoccurring too, because it's brought up another time.
But it doesn't work, right? Oh, you're talking about the library in season 2? When he's like, I'm on a voyage, a curiosity voyage or something.
Yeah, something like that. And it doesn't work that time, and he steals the books. It's just so funny. Like, they just give the best lines to him. And I think it's because Gaten Mazzarato, he's just so good at delivering those types of lines. So he's hilarious.
Mine is definitely She'll Kill You. I mean, I love that it's such little kid pride of she's our friend and she's crazy.
Yeah.
But my second favorite part about the line is the gratuitous swearing. You hear me, you sons of bitches. It just feels like real 12-year-olds yelling at each other in a hard situation.
So good.
All right, so season 2, 1 year later, Dustin is been working all this time to get his top scores on Dig Dug, and I forget the other game, but he finds at the beginning of season 2 that Centipede and Dig Dug, but he finds at the beginning of season 2 they have been beaten by Mad Max. And they find out who Mad Max is, they find out she's a girl, and he and Lucas are smitten. They ask her to trick or treat, and then you forget that the first 2 episodes of season 2 actually end with Dustin at his door. And on the end of the first episode, there's like a flash in the garbage can, but Dustin doesn't notice it. And in the second episode, that's when it does flash in the garbage, and he opens up the garbage can, and then it ends right there.
And what's in there?
And D'Artagnan, a piece of the Upside Down. Thank goodness it wasn't a Demogorgon or something like that. This is something I was reflecting on a little bit, but at the point when you're very first watching season 2, you have only experienced a kid in danger at the end of an episode only one time before, and that was Will.
Fair, yeah.
In season 1. So, like, you feel a little pang of danger for Dustin. Like, is he this season's Will? You forget about that.
I totally forgot about that.
6 years later, but
knowing what happens, I completely forgot about that.
But he takes, as classic Dustin, he takes it in as a pet. He feeds it 3 Musketeers.
Naturally.
Yeah. And even after Will, he brings it to school, and Will confirms that Dart is from the Upside Down. Mm-hmm. Yet Dustin becomes at odds with the friend group, especially Mike, who wants to kill it. Why does Dustin want Dart to live, even after finding out that it's a creature from the Upside Down?
Well, we have to remember it starts from scientific curiosity when he meets Dart. And so he's coming at it as a scientist, and he's really he's able to actually kind of connect with it as if it is a pet. I mean, it is really interacting with him in a semi-positive way. So I think that allows him to consider that it may not be inherently bad, but you know what? Like, he's actually right about that. We see evidence that it's not inherently bad when they're in the tunnels and Dustin is able to coax Dart in eating the candy bar instead of them, of course. But you also see that later when when Vecna's talking about how he manipulates the upside down, like all the Demogorgons, they weren't like inherently bad. You know, it's Vecna controlling the Demodogs. Really.
Yeah, that's still on the table that they are not inherently bad. That's a good point.
Yeah, so like I think Dustin was right in that instance.
Yeah. I mean, I think he keeps Dart because he wants to impress Max with it.
Well, and that too, of course.
All of everything Dustin and Lucas do in this season, as 13-year-old boys do, is related to impressing a girl.
That's true. That is absolutely true.
Both things can be true, but so Dustin, when they're in the school and Dart escapes, Dustin finds Dart first and hides him under his hat and takes him home. He's deceiving the party. However, Dart grows up, molts again, and eats his cat. And he realizes at that point he realizes his error. He has the catcher's mitt moment where he gets it into the basement, but he can't get a hold of anybody. Can't get a hold of Mike. Will is on a Will Flair crisis,
of course,
and he breaks. And Lucas is over telling Max everything, also breaking the rules. Dustin can only find Steve Harrington. And he says, "You still got that bat." And thus starts one of the greatest teams in all of Stranger Things. Out of nowhere, they had never interacted across the whole thing. And here we are, Dustin and Steve begin their plan to do the junkyard. Why are Dustin and Steve one of the magical threads throughout Stranger Things? Such a good team.
Well, okay, first off, I think it develops probably for Steve because I think it probably feels good to Steve that somebody is putting trust in him and like needs him for help. And I think that gives Steve a sense of like importance and usefulness, something that he's like kind of lacking at this point. You know, he's just lost Nancy as his girlfriend. And like, so he needs the purpose in his life. And Dustin gives that to him. So I think that maybe like starts it. But then let's face it, Dustin may be a nerd, but he is like a super cool, fun guy. And I think Steve identifies that in him. So Dustin's like positive. He's got this open attitude that allows their connection to become this sort of friendship. But I don't know, like, you know, the fact that Dustin puts so much trust in Steve, all of that combined, I think is what allows them to become close. And then of course they become
taking it from
Dustin Steve.
Yeah, taking it from the Steve angle. You know, I think that's true. I see it more from like Dustin's side as the, you know, Steve is someone who can get me somewhere. He looks up to Steve. He's learning things from Steve that he is not learning from Mike and Lucas. And
that's true.
There's also just actor chemistry too. I mean, it's undefinable. It's you know, you can't really talk about it on a podcast specifically, but there's something there.
Do you think that they developed maybe the storyline around them because of their chemistry?
Had to. I mean, they had to have seen those scenes in season 2 and been like, these people Steve and Dustin need to be together in season 3. And there's also sort of a Laurel and Hardy thing. You know, Dustin is like the pushy one, and Hardy, you know, Steve is more of the innocent, you know, bumbling one. There's a comedic timing to it that is timeless.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
So they walk down the train tracks to the junkyard. Steve shares his Farrah Fawcett spray tip with Dustin. They find that Dart has, they first go to the basement and set the trap and all that stuff, but then they go to the train tracks, then they go to the junkyard. They commiserate about their respective girl problems because Steve's in Nancy, bummer heartbreak moment, and Dustin's in Max, bummer heartbreak moment. The junkyard trap goes awry, and they are going to die if not for the Demodogs leaving, and they follow them to the lab and to the buyer's house and all that stuff. They realize Bob is dead, and you know 11 is gone. It's a dark moment. And in the plan, and Will has been flayed. But in the planning, Dustin again is the one talking to the audience. What we have been calling the shadow monster, he dubs the Mind Flayer, and he also,
and he's right.
Well, I mean, he helps the audience understand an abstract concept, and he also continues to realize that Max has chosen Lucas.
Hey, I'm sorry about Dart. No, I guess I just thought that he was my friend. I was wrong. I broke the rule of law, so I mean, if you want your girlfriend to take over my spot in the party, I understand.
She's not my girlfriend.
I saw you two holding hands on the bus, Lucas.
She was just scared.
Maybe, but I could feel it.
Feel what?
The electricity.
It's such a little sad moment for Dustin. I mean, he knows he was wrong as far as like the group goes. He knows he was wrong to lie about Dart, but also he's like admitting in that moment that he doesn't have a chance with Max, that like Lucas is the one, even if Lucas hasn't fully acknowledged it yet. So Dustin's like vulnerability in this small moment, it's kind of rare throughout the seasons, but I think it's really important to his character because even though he's this happy and comfortable with himself kind of guy, he still has this unsure, vulnerable side that allows him to be relatable to the audience. Yeah. And I think that's really important.
It's a new, like a rare tone in his voice. It's a little bit lower. He talks about the rule of law, there. He brings that up in the conversation with Mike too. When he's like, you broke the rule of law, so you go apologize. Right. And I feel like that's a big thing for Dustin is unfortunately, like a lot of smart people, as he grows up, he's, realizing there's less structure to the world. But as a kid, he's like memorized all these structures. And he learned about electricity from Steve, and he's seen the electricity with a scientist again, a very scientific approach. Exactly. I was told to watch for this, and it's there. Yeah. Well, 11 saves them from the demo dogs. Dustin, like the rest of the kids, is on the bench, but pushes for this plan to go to the tunnels and set fire to distract all the demo dogs from Hopper and 11. And Steve is not able to stop them because he's been beaten by Billy. And when Steve wakes up, Dustin and Steve have that closing moment of season 2 where he says, "We're doing this. You said you'd protect us." Hands him his bat and says, "So protect."
Yeah.
And the day is eventually saved, and Dustin was a big part of it yet again.
Aww.
And then the end of season 2 is that you're one of your favorite parts of the whole series, I honestly think.
It really is.
The snowball, where Dustin plays probably one of the most major roles of the entire series when he is trying to find a dance partner for the snowball to the tune of Cyndi Lauper's Time After Time. He can't find anyone and is eventually saved by Nancy. Why is this scene so sad?
Well, first off, because everybody, the entire audience, loves Dustin the most, and nobody wants to see him bad. But also, I talked earlier about Dustin being comfortable with himself, but that there's still this part of him that wants to be cool, especially, I mean, you got to think about it. Now that he's interested in girls, like that's big. So when he goes through the effort to make his hair cool like Steve, he's taking all of Steve's advice. He arrives hopeful and confident because obviously Steve is like super popular. So then it's like super sad when he's shot down. I think we can all kind of relate. It takes a lot of courage to ask somebody you like to dance like that or ask somebody on a date when you're that age. But then, gosh, Nancy steps in and she saves the day. It ends up being the sweetest scene. And you're right, it is one of my favorite scenes. God, we love him so much as a character. Like that vulnerability that's just saved by Nancy. Yeah. We all feel that so hard.
Watching him go from, because he's seen a lot of movies where the cool guys go get dances. He's very pop culture oriented. Watching him go from rejection to crying at the bleachers is so identifiable.
Yeah.
And especially since the snowball is a part where they're not battling any mysterious creatures.
No.
We all know this coming of age type of story. Yeah. And there's also an element to Nancy that I hadn't really noticed. Nancy and Dustin. In the very first episode, Nancy slams the door in Dustin's face as he offers her pizza.
Yeah.
And then we come to the end of season 2, and she is the one honestly saving his life.
Yeah. Well, and he says, like, back at that that moment, too, he says to Mike, your sister used to be cool. She used to hang out with us. And then while they're dancing, I think, doesn't she even say, like, you've always been my favorite one?
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, it's just really, really sweet that you have that, like, whole turnaround.
Yeah. Well, that surely helped him through 8th grade. After 8th grade, it's time for season 3.
Here we go.
Dustin is returning not only from 8th grade, but then summer camp. So he has that whole thing. He's coming back. They have that surprise party to welcome him back. Where he sprays the spray into Lucas's face.
Yes, I love it. I can't even go that high right now.
I can't do it at all. He reveals, Dustin says, hey, I've got a few inventions and also a super ham radio named Cerebro where I can talk to my new girlfriend, Susie.
Aw, yeah.
And so they go up there to set it up. Mike and 11 peel off. Eventually, Will, Lucas, and Max all peel off as he tries to reach Susie, and she never answers. However, he does pick up a Russian transmission, which starts the plot. But in this first episode, which is aptly titled, Susie, Do You Copy? Did you doubt that Susie existed?
No, I never doubted that she existed. And how dare anyone who doubts Dustin? Did you doubt him? I want to hear. You better say no.
I thought I did kind of doubt him. I mean, the characters do. Lucas and Steve waffle, and Dustin, Max flat out says Dustin is obviously lying. I guess I didn't doubt that Susie was like this fictitious person, but I thought that that he had read a lot more into it. He's like, I'm gonna call my new girlfriend.
Yeah, so I could see that, but
that's what
I never thought he lied. The only time he's really lied in the series was about Dart, and that was to protect his little demodog friend. I think it would have really hurt Dustin's character if they had made Susie a lie that Dustin fabricated, because we as the audience, we rely on Dustin's storytelling and trusting that what he's saying is really true. He develops the story. So
I think I was thinking, and I think Steve and them think it's more of an exaggeration of a girl he talked to more than he made up this whole girl. Or he has a crush on this girl. Not thinking that Susie reciprocates his feelings, I guess, was my...
Oh, see, I still think it would have hurt his character because he's so on the ball with everything that if he had been so off about this, it just would have messed that up. It would have contradicted our trust in him and the character's trusts in him as
that's
well.
A good point. I would never. Yeah, that would have had some ramifications. Yeah. So well. What he does get out of that first thing is that Russian recording, which he brings to Steve at Scoops Ahoy, who with their new...
Another great scene.
and another great character, Robin joins, and they all crack the code together and recruit yet another great character, Erica, Scoops' troop.
So good.
And they end up eventually, throughout the whole investigation there, they end up deep below the mall in a secret underground Russian base, where when they finally get out of the tunnel and they see all these people in Russian uniforms, Dustin goes, "Oh, it's like Red Dawn, the movie." Do you think is Dustin ever afraid? He experiences all of this as a mind puzzle almost, like Dungeons and Dragons, or it's Star Wars, or it's Red Dawn, the movie. Is he ever afraid?
I think that he is really, but we've talked a lot about his scientific view on everything. He's got this curious mind, and I think that really distracts him from the fear.
Yeah, I do love that he's amazed by the feat of engineering just alone about this whole thing under the base. That's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. His ability to comprehend the dangerous situations throughout the series, but it also logically allows him to act courageously when he thinks there could be success. And I think, again, that goes back to the scientific eagerness to learn and see how things play out. Right. So I don't think that that's an absence of fear. I think it's just that his curiosity, determination, and courage kind of overrides that fear.
Yeah. And I think the change of tone from season 2 to season 3 also sort of helps it. I don't know. Dustin fits it better.
Yeah.
He seamlessly moves across that.
Yeah.
So after the Russian base adventure and they escape and they rescue the drugged up Steve and Robin, where Dustin has to play parent, they're eventually saved by 11 in the food court when she flings that thing like a hot wheel. And everyone reunites. And the plan is again to send the kids away. But then Dustin and Hopper have that moment where Dustin's like, Every season you put us on the bench. I can tell you how to get through this base. You need my help. And Hopper finally allows Dustin to do something and guide them from a distance.
Yep.
And during the operation, he becomes in great handy because Murray forgets Planck's constant, which is supposed to be the password, and Dustin has a way to get it. He calls Susie and sings a little tune.
Oh man, as somebody who loves the Neverending Story, I like really connected with this scene. I loved it. But like the thing that's so comical is that literally everyone can hear him singing to Susie and he knows it, but he knows that he has to go on to get Planck's constant. Yeah. He's such a rock star. It's like so fun and comical, like in the midst of this like super dark moment.
Yep.
Like it's just hilarious. The Duffer Brothers have a knack for like bringing in the lightheartedness when it's necessary.
And it's a whole season arc. That's when we find out Susie is real and reciprocates his feelings.
That's like the very end of the season.
All that time. Rewatching it, what I struck to me most was sort of how this is paired pretty much equally with the end of season 4 when Eddie plays Master of Puppets with Dustin there. You know, they're two musical numbers that are just absolutely critical to the plot. Literally part of the plot.
Yeah.
Neverending Story, he sings that for the passcode, and Master of Puppets, of course, they play that to distract the bats away from the Vecna lair. And the two songs could not be more different.
so different.
They kind of represent their respective seasons.
Yeah, they do. And their ages too. Like Dustin is still, they're young still. And like
the
adolescent.
end of middle school here, and then it's high school. Yeah. So Dustin gets the code. The plan barely works. Dustin is he's the one repeatedly yelling, close it to Joyce as she turns the key and for all she knows kills Hopper there. And then 3 months later, we're getting the epilogue and Dustin's part of the epilogue is he's delivering all of Will's Dungeons and Dragons stuff to Erica, who they had a bond in the vents there. I love the Dustin and Erica dynamic. I want more of that for season 5.
Yep. And that ties her, by doing that ties her more into season 4.
It does. Yeah, that's a big deal. That comes back. Season 4.
Here we go.
It's high school time. So we learn that their freshman year of high school, which is now about spring break. So they're in the third quarter or whatever.
Right.
And we learned Dustin and Mike have kind of come under the wing of Eddie and the Hellfire Club, Dustin, Mike, and Lucas. But Lucas isn't available. They recruit Erica, as you said.
Right.
Good timing on Dustin's part to make sure Erica would be able to help them because she does help them win that Vecna campaign and that wonderful moment at the end of that first episode. The next day, Dustin is just chilling at home when Max comes in to tell him someone else is dead and it might be the Upside Down.
Oh, yeah. Or Eddie.
And it's, Max is basically saying it happened across the street. It's Eddie. And Dustin, he rules that out immediately.
Yeah.
He's like, we got to find him and figure out what happened because he didn't do this. Why is he so sure? Why is he so sure that Eddie didn't do this?
Well, the thing is, like, okay, we already know that Dustin has great intellect. He's super intelligent. And I think that it spreads to emotional intellect as well. We see that in season 1 when he correctly calls out Lucas's jealousy over 11. Mm-hmm. But because of this, I think it allows Dustin to see people for who they really are. Yeah. And so Dustin is able to identify early on that Eddie is not a killer. He understands Eddie in a way that nobody else does. And so, like, just like his connection with Steve, he's created this bond with Eddie as well.
Yeah. And again, that's very important for us, the audience, because we trust Dustin, as we've said multiple times here. That's how we know to implicitly trust Eddie as one of the real good guys.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So Dustin says, well, we're going to set up base of operations at Steve and Robin's work. We're going to find Eddie. They do that. They find Eddie. They find him at the boathouse. Then they learn about Fred's death. and they hook up with Nancy, and then they realize Max is next, and that
She's
whole
been
thing.
Vecna'd.
Yeah, that whole thing. Check out our Max episode for detailed discussion on the Dear Billy episode, and Dustin's part in that is bringing the cassettes up and asking, "What's her favorite song?" Lucas, why? There's no time to explain. I love Dustin and Lucas's bickering.
Yeah.
Right from the first season, or first episode, where they're talking about Mirkwood. It's actually from The Hobbit. So that Max is safe, and then they become the Scooby Gang, and the gang is searching the Creel house or discovering Watergate. I mean, Dustin is making like all of the major connections. He's the one who finds Watergate. He's the one who realizes the compasses are going to be good. He's the one who talks about what Vecna is doing and why, because he's the one opening the gates. How many times does he have to be right for us to just trust him?
Well, I think for the most part, people do trust Dustin. Like, the story is often moved along based on what Dustin said. Yeah, there's like some doubt in there, of course. Yeah. They're all young, but like really, I think they do actually truly trust Dustin when it comes down to it.
Yeah, he's not perfect. He does have that moment where he says how to kill the mind flayers and with an army of the undead.
Yeah.
And Hopper's like, what? And Dustin's like, well, it is just a game. I love that there was a limit, at least.
Exactly. And honestly, like, we will only really see resistance from Steve, but that's because Steve's jealous over Eddie. So like
I love that moment with when Dustin actually says that line, how many times do I have to be right for you to just trust me?
Yeah.
And Steve says to Eddie, God, the ego on this kid. And Eddie goes, it's just tone, right?
I know. That's so good.
You're right that Steve and Dustin, they're butting heads in season 4. Like, this is Skull Rock in your cocky little face, dude.
Yeah, and I don't think that comes from like a distrust. I think he's just mad.
No, certainly not. And Dustin is getting smarter and smarter as the years go by. He's really the one. Without him, they do not succeed. In season 4. Him and Nancy are critical.
Absolutely.
Obviously, 11 is the MVP, but every year she's the LeBron.
MVP.
She's the LeBron James of the group. But one wrong thing that Dustin gets while they're collared by the law and Dustin is explaining to the audience is that he says Vecna is the Mind Flayer's 5-star general. Who do we know who wants to take over the world? The Mind Flayer. And we've talked about that on the podcast as being not our favorite twist. Because of all the stuff we've been talking about for 37 minutes here, we are trained to understand Dustin's analogies as ways to understand what's happening. So for him to be so wrong or to bring it up, I mean, he is the one who talks about Upside Down with the Veil of Shadows. He's the one who names the Mind Flayer.
Yeah.
He's the one who names Vecna with Eddie. He's explaining it all to us. And then this
part still gets me. Like, I think about it often. There's still a part of me that really actually hopes that season 5 will bring this back up and like there will be a different conclusion, that Vecna wasn't 100% the mastermind all along. And wouldn't that be such justice for Dustin too, to find that Vecna was in fact the 5-star general and Dustin was right all along?
You know, I hadn't thought about this before, but I think that the note that you hit when we were talking season 2 about he trusts Dart to be implicitly good, and then, you know, later we see Vecna walking by a Demogorgon who's not attacking him.
Right.
Like that type of thing. This really seems like this could be in play. Separating the Mind Flayer from Vecna really, really be a part of season 5, I think.
It really doesn't seem like the story is going that way, but also I really want them to remedy this because again, Dustin has never really been wrong.
Yeah, because we, the audience, have to get our answers from somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know if anyone's watched Westworld, skip forward 30 seconds so I don't spoil it for you, though. Not recommended, by the way, after season 1. Season 1, good. The rest of it sucks.
Yeah.
But Westworld, you know, it was like they're going to blow our minds with these twists, but they're twisting from sources that we were trained to trust.
Right.
I mean, that's not a twist. That's just telling us something and then telling us the opposite thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So I agree with you. There's room for wiggle room. I think we may be a little harsh here. This is like us talking about how they've wrapped up Star Wars after watching only the first 2 movies. You know, like obviously there's one more big ending here.
Right.
So Dustin helps them get out. He says, "Oh, there's a gate," and Robin, genius child, gets them all safe, except for Nancy, who has a message from Vecna. And Dustin's role in the new plan, in Nancy's plan, is to be basically the roadie for Eddie in the Metallica bat distraction. And as the bats, they set it up, Master, as the bats get to the trailer, they're inside there, they're locked up, but they can only hold them off so long, and they go back to the right side up. Eddie chooses not to escape and to lure the bats back out, and he's eventually killed by the bats.
So sad.
Dustin can't get there because he hurts his ankle, on the thing. And he's basically there to hear Eddie's last words and ends the season on a somber note.
It's like Bob all over again.
And we haven't seen Dustin in this type of the moment here, but his dealing with Eddie's death is going to be a big deal. And 2 days later, he breaks the news to Uncle Munson about his nephew.
He could have saved himself, but he fought. He fought and died to protect this town. This town that hated him. He isn't just innocent. Mr. Munson, he's a hero.
That's Uncle Munson crying, not us crying in the background, but it is.
Although we were definitely crying in the background
when we first saw it. Oh boy. Yeah.
Oh gosh, this truly is a sad moment. Not only does it encapsulate Dustin's relationship with Eddie as like his dear friend that he's just lost, but it's also like understanding the importance of Eddie's uncle, knowing that there were people out there that know Eddie was a hero and not the villain. So like Dustin makes sure that he knows that. And it's like a hero moment for Dustin. It shows like just his integrity as a character that he does that.
Yeah. I mean, he's really telling the story that Eddie wanted told about him. You know, he wanted to be the hero. He says it to Dustin. I didn't run away this time. You know, look after the sheep. It's my year.
Didn't run away this time. Oh my gosh, it's going to get me.
But there's something deeper too that I really think is going to be a big problem for Dustin in season 5, which is on his face, which is that Eddie didn't have to do that. He didn't have to die. But Eddie is so focused on making some sort of sacrifice outside of D&D. I'm no hero, not me. You know, I turn heel and run. You know, I guess I run. That's what I do now. I mean, he's just absolutely determined to make some sort of sacrifice to himself, and he just didn't have to. Yeah. And I think Dustin mentions that at some point. But he's telling the story to Uncle Munson. But I think that this is going to be a big part of season 5, and Dustin's going to start season 5 in a darker place. You know, this is the randomness of life. You know, the rule of law doesn't apply here. He's growing up. As you've said many times, we're getting more and more adult with the story.
Right.
And this is dark. There's not meaning in this death like there might be in the movies. I don't know. Do you agree with me that Eddie didn't have to die? I know it's not explicitly said in the text, but I don't think he had to. I think Eddie died when he ran away from Chrissy. He died because he absolutely had it in his mind from that point that he was a coward for leaving Chrissy, and he had to remedy that by something against the Upside Down, though he didn't know it at the time. But I just feel Eddie is a tragedy. He's not.
Oh God, absolutely.
He's not the story that he's telling Uncle Munson, in my opinion.
I really worry that this is going to introduce some doubt into Dustin's character. Maybe that like he's no longer going to trust his scientific intuition, that he's going to I feel like he's going to potentially feel partially responsible for Eddie's death. You know, we see that theme throughout. We see that with Nancy and Barb. Mm-hmm. And of course we see that the biggest is Max and Billy. That guilt is there. So I could see that happening again with Dustin and Eddie. And I think that could really affect the whole group's ability to move forward because they so often depend on Dustin's insights. So if he is hindered in that way, it's going to affect the whole group, I think. I don't know. I hope this doesn't happen. I hope that this just drives Dustin to be more determined rather than being hindered.
Yeah, I really worry about it, but I think this is the season 5 hitch, and it's also his social net at high school. Eddie and that group and the Hellfire group is he going to be able to on that same path with this brutal death of a teenager, or however old Eddie is, but
we don't even know how the whole Hawkins is going to be.
Yeah, obviously there are many people out there who want Eddie to come back for season 5. I don't think that he's going to. It would be stupid if he did. But he will be that. He will be there in Dustin's heart and Dustin's plot. I truly believe that.
I do agree with that. Absolutely.
All right. Well, that is the Dustin Henderson Lovesick Blues. No, I had that line for Max, but I forgot to bring it.
Everybody's favorite character, Dustin.
Really, he is. Well, we will be back for everyone's least favorite character, Jonathan Byers.
That's the truth.
Sorry, Jonathan, but we get to talk about it a lot. My name is Miles.
I'm Kathleen.
Good night.